Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osmond. Busy week, Marina?
It has been busy, but it's now calming down, which I'm very pleased about. Yeah, it was quite busy, election and all that jazz. And how about you?
Yeah, not bad. Honestly, the election, I'm going to try and catch up this week.
No spoilers from anyone, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I've got it taped, but I have high hopes for the Lib Dems.
It's a fantastic box set, I will tell you.
I think they're going to win. What are we going to talk about this week?
We are going to talk about Jill Biden. The First Lady has done a Vogue cover, at possibly the worst time to ever Vogue cover. So we can talk about why First Ladies might do Vogue covers and why this is a bit of a horror show.
And also Hollywood's backing of Joe Biden and why that is slightly unravelling.
Yeah, the money coming from Hollywood is drying up in a very public way because obviously they're not backward in coming forward. So we'll talk about that.
We're going to talk about the new superstars. We're going to talk about famous people from different areas who you might not have heard of yet. So we're going to fill you in like a bluffer's guide to the biggest new stars in the world. So you will never look an idiot in a dinner party conversation again.
People who are some of the biggest movie stars and simultaneously no one's ever heard of, and why that might be.
Yeah, well, we haven't heard of them. As it were. And I am going to take us through all the people who lost their jobs in the election and what TV futures might await them.
We're not doing all of them. We're not doing all 250 or whatever it is.
I'm not doing everybody, but yes, that thing of saying, oh, someone's going to be on Strictly, someone's going to be in the jungle. So I'm going to take you through exactly what I think is going to happen to all of the big beasts of politics who lost their jobs last week. Right, with my producer's hat on.
I love your producer's hat.
Yes. If you're watching on YouTube, it is an invisible producer's hat. I'll give you that. But I've often been an invisible producer. Hat. Thank you. That'd be nice.
Right. Let's get on to Jill Biden's Vogue cover. Jill Biden has done a Vogue cover. You'll be aware that her husband had a not great performance in the first debate, which is, in other ways, partly memorable for her saying afterwards, grabbing a microphone and saying, Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. Which, if you're trying to sort of convey the image of being, a commander-in-chief of your own self, is not great. And whatever the fairness of looking at Jill Biden as the power behind the throne or whatever, this is the perception of Jill Biden currently, that she is a very, very significant advisor to her husband, who many people think is in some kind of cognitive decline. So the perception matters of her as the power behind the throne. And she's done a Vogue cover.
But when you say Vogue cover, you mean she is on the cover of Vogue magazine? She hasn't done a cover version of Madonna's Vogue, which would be a real pivot.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, throw anything at it.
Yeah,
so
but you might as well,
why
right?
Not?
It's weird. The thing that really changed the dial is when Jill released that cover version of Vogue.
Vogue.
Yeah.
I am, in fact, talking about a cover of US Vogue, the magazine. For me, it's not a great cover, by the way, because I'm not interested in magazine covers in sort of biscuity oatmeal tones.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and she's not. I don't like the subject unless something very dynamic is happening. I don't like the subject not looking at the camera in a magazine cover.
Where's she looking?
Oh, askance.
Is she? I bet she is.
And I'm afraid the cover line is "We will decide our future," which is a sort of slightly imperious royal we sounding thing. So it couldn't really, in many ways, be worse timed. And it's interesting for various reasons. First ladies doing Vogue covers was not a thing for a long time, but it used to be regarded as this incredibly prestigious thing. Chiefly after Hillary Clinton did it, and it was after the Monica Lewinsky. It was at the end of sort of the year of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It was the December issue, and they got her up in it was a long black dress, but she looked pretty sort of elegant and like, I've won.
Yeah.
And it was talked about a huge amount. And Anna Wintour, who's still the legendary editor of US Vogue and was at the time, said, she's now an icon. She's above politics because she's been on the cover of Vogue.
Wow. She should run for president. Yeah. She would definitely win.
Yeah. You don't hear that so often nowadays because in some ways, Vogue has become associated with something that's become very bad, which is aspiration and elitism. We can talk about that again in a minute. But then other people have done it, and Michelle Obama did it 3 times. She did it I think she did 2009, not before the election, maybe 2013, again after the election, and she did look quite sort of smart. But the one she did at the very end in 2016, after the election was like it's almost bridal. It's all like full Annie Leibovitz. Annie Leibovitz did all the pictures. She's kind of splayed out against some moss. It's sort of like, hi, I'm about to get married to my new life as a mega celebrity and we're no longer in politics anymore. Anyway, Melania Trump has never done it.
Really?
Now, in some ways, as a former model, she's the most likely the one you could do most with, but she didn't ever get offered the cover, and they were very, very angry. And it's a sort of thing in Trump world that why wasn't Melania offered the cover? They couldn't guarantee her the cover, and so she's never done it. But Anna Wintour is a big, big fundraiser. I think she was Obama's in 2012. I think she was like Obama's fourth biggest fundraiser. Wow. She is a huge fundraiser, and the Vogue cover was always seen by first ladies as, this is a good way to talk, but it's a puff piece. Now, I think puff pieces can always backfire. It doesn't matter which publication you do them in. Vogue actually had maybe the worst puff piece of all time. The French Vogue editor, Joan Juliette Buck, the former French Vogue editor, was sent to go and interview in 2010. Ding dong, the Arab Spring's just starting. Bashar al-Assad's wife in Syria.
Wow.
And she went and did it, and it became this, it was a huge profile, I mean, completely flattering, headlined A Rose in the Desert, all about her sort of ordering Jimmy Choos online and things like that. It was you know, while her husband was...
all that red is not roses.
Yeah. Yeah, while her husband was sort of torturing ordering the torture of kind of young revolutionaries, and it was really bad for Vogue. It was really bad. Joan Juliette Buck's, I think, contract was never really renewed, which was, you know, she did the assignment.
It's like, you know, those big sort of double spread articles about Jimmy Savile used to read in Loaded, and you look back and you think, oh, that's not great. Yeah,
that was not a great one. Anyway, so we now know puff pieces can backfire. This one has backfired. The reason that Jill Biden has done this is because, particularly perhaps at this time, is because Joe Biden is not doing interviews currently, which perhaps tells its own story. And this is a way of sort of getting the campaign message out there in that slightly soft way. But clearly, in this case, it's her third time doing it too. It is backfired badly. I think it's quite interesting that we no longer see, I wonder whether the idea of Vogue as a campaign stop at all is sort of fading because of this elitism thing I was talking about.
I mean, I have to say it's the first time I've heard of Vogue as being a campaign step.
Yeah.
I'm not, as you know, I'm not as across Vogue as you are. Sometimes it's like, if we talk about World Snooker, I tend to take the lead. And if we talk about Vogue, you do. But it's essentially been a player, and that's why it's interesting to us. The entertainment industry is quite a big player in the US election, and Vogue would be a part of that. There are various finances in Hollywood, and the Hollywood movie machine are also kind of part of that thing of promoting the Democrats. But Vogue, by and large, would be a stop you have to make on this tour. But now it's a poison chalice, maybe.
It is, but I think that if you look at those dates that Michelle Obama did it, she does it in 2009 after she's won, does it in 2013 after Obama's won again. I think it's risky on the campaign trail. As I say, puff pieces can backfire, but politicians have always been very, very fussy about how they appear in magazines. There's an interesting bit in Tina Brown's diaries of editing Vanity Fair, when she goes in the 80s. And they go to the White House and they're doing an interview with Reagan. But they go into, I think, the map room, and maybe the photographer puts on some music. And Reagan says to Nancy Reagan, let's dance. And for 15 minutes, they dance. And then he gives her a kiss. And the photographer got the shot. Then Tina Brown obviously can't believe it. Gets back and thinks, obviously the kiss is the cover. And this is brilliant. And then the White House call and get very, very stressed and say, we don't actually, Nancy, we don't know about any of this. We don't think we want any of these pictures in. So she has to go back and try and make it work. And in the end, they have to settle on not doing the kiss on the cover. But there's a picture of them dancing and Nancy sort of kicking up one of her legs behind. It's a sort of great shot, but they're so fussy. Even this is, by the way, by the point he's in the White House, they are always worried about how things come across. And
usually quite bad at understanding how things would come across as well.
But those two understood better than most people because they came from the entertainment industry, maybe from the B string of it, but they came from it and they understood it better. And I think Obama had an instinctive understanding of those types of things. But this is now a sort of a bit of a millstone, a bit of a Jillstone, if you will.
Oh, well, that's good.
If you're thinking that the First Lady is the power behind the throne, and that she is directing operations from the back room, and if you're on the cover of Vogue looking out away saying, we will decide our future. So I'm thinking that might change. But Hollywood in general is having a little bit of a moment about Joe Biden.
Yeah, so Jeffrey Katzenberg, who, one of the big Hollywood moguls who set up DreamWorks with Spielberg and David Geffen, he has been the sort of chief cheerleader for Biden for many years now. I think he's the deputy chair of his
he's one of 7 campaign
committee.
chairs, I think, yeah.
And, he's been involved in getting money into the Democratic coffers, and he has continued to do that over the last few months, and people are starting to fall away a little bit, and people are starting to blame Katzenberg for not intervening with Biden as well. And the interesting thing about it is it's not just money. There's plenty of money in Hollywood and American politics. If you know less about it than the UK, it is driven by millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, individual contributions and things which are called PACs and super PACs, which are essentially just almost like an investment fund, a way of investing in a presidential candidate. And it's enormous in America. You have to outspend your opponents across such a big territory. So Hollywood has been a big deal in that and raising money. But they also have a lot of sway over the narrative of a campaign. And Katzenberg and various other Hollywood people, they are bought in to talk about what the story of the campaign is. And he has been, like you get a script in and you have an 81-year-old in the script and you're kind of going, yeah, but are we really going to buy that this is the great hero of the story because 81 is old? And then a decent Hollywood script editor goes, no, we lean into it. And Katzenberg has said that about Biden. He said, no, that's his superpower. His age is his superpower. His wisdom is his superpower. And so that Hollywood thing of going, there's a script problem here, which for sure there is, right? This guy's age and his cognitive abilities. There is a script problem, but we can fix script problems. And we fix it by saying, no, actually, it's the opposite. It is this wisdom, and actually this is exactly who we need. And Katzenberg has really bought into this narrative. And the rest of Hollywood seem to have gone, I'm not sure this script note is working.
Well, it's interesting that what happened at the start, when people who were defending kind of Katzenberg being the level of involved he is, which is very significant, and he's always, by the way, been a long time donor to the Democratic cause. George Clooney said, I always say, look, everybody keeps coming into Hollywood for cash, and they don't come to us for the one thing we do better than anybody else, which is to tell stories. And I think it's a very good idea that they're going to Jeffrey, not for raising money, but for narratives. I think that's a very good thing. Now, this always annoys me. Anyone who thinks that politics is the same as their business, okay? Yes. It is not the same as their business. It is. We've had versions of it here. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking of when David Cameron made Philip Green his efficiency czar. I think it was Cameron and Philip Green, who was at the time the chairman of Topshop and BHS and things like that. Most of which are no longer with us, but he is enjoying his billions somewhere in a.
To be fair, that is efficient.
A tax jurisdiction, yes, that is efficient. But he produced this report in which he essentially thought that the state was analogous to retail, and he kept saying, "Well, why don't you just pay your suppliers late?" It's like. It doesn't work like that in the NHS. He just doesn't. They don't understand these things. And actually, I have to say, it's nonsense that Hollywood can create the narrative for the presidential campaign. But people who know much more about it than George Clooney or Jeffrey Katzenberg or anyone, it is not the same. They are not analogous. And people who think that they are, it's another version of Hollywood self-importance, I'm sorry to say. And I think we can all live without it. Give us your money and be on your way. And they have given them money, and maybe Biden won't need to go back to Hollywood because there was some party that Katzenberg threw about a few weeks ago, and they raised $30 million out on one night, and Julia Roberts was there and George Clooney was there and all these sorts of things. But you're now seeing people really turn on it, and people are saying you de-aged about Katzenberg, that he, in that sort of AI buzzwords, that you digitally de-aged him. You said that it was fine, and it's not fine. I quite enjoy the plain speaking Ari Emanuel, who is the CEO of Endeavour, one of the very big talent agencies that also owns things like UFC and WWE, and he put it simply, "We are in fuck city," and he also then said his cohorts have said he's healthy for over a year. It's a very simple test for me. This is the test, by the way. If you were driving from downtown Beverly Hills to Malibu, would you want Biden to do it at night? Would you want Trump to do it at night, or neither? If it's neither, you cannot have them running a $27 trillion company called the United States.
Oh, that's great.
That should be my test. Get them in Beverly Hills and say, now get to Malibu without any form of accident. And if neither of them can do it, then get someone new.
See, and that's the difference, because Ari Emanuel is an agent and Katzenberg obviously is a producer and a creative. And producers and creatives are used to something coming on their desk in the morning that has to be shot that afternoon and going, oh no, it's easy. No, he's wise. Just, you know what? Just make him wise. It's absolutely fine. But all day, every day for 50 years, that's been his job.
He's
by
like
the way, something comes through, you just go, do you know what? Why don't we just shift the perspective a tiny bit and then it'll all be okay. You know, but half the movies he makes fails. So, you know, that's where we are. Whereas an agent has absolutely, just doesn't care anything about any of that. An agent is just thinking, I just got to get some business done, and and if I've got a client who's in trouble, you know what, you have to cut people off. And they're much, much, much more ruthless than producers.
I completely agree with this. However, even the wishy-washy Hollywood liberals are now coming out to say, Damon Lindelof, who's a big showrunner, has written an op-ed saying, no more checks to anyone now. Well, I give lots of checks. Now I'm not giving checks to anyone, even including down ballot people, because this is, you know, so they're on strike with their millions, which I find hysterical.
And down ballot people is during every election. There's also lots and lots of state level elections and federal elections where other Democrats try and get in against Republicans. And actually, a big Democratic presidential run is very, very important for all those smaller roles in states everywhere. And so it's not just the presidency, it's the whole infrastructure of America. The whole democratic infrastructure of America comes from this. And so Hollywood's going to try and fix it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, people like Barry Diller have said, Barry Diller, who's an enormous mogul, used to run Paramount, then started Fox, Expedia. He does all the. But crucially, he mentored one of Katzenberg used to be his assistant.
Oh, really?
Barry Diller mentored so many people. I think they've got a name for them. I can't remember what they call them, like Diller's Killers or something like that.
Dilettantes.
Yeah, dilettantes would be good. So he's saying no more money now. Abigail Disney has come out and said no more money now. She said,
what does she do for a living?
Yeah, exactly. Not a lot. You don't need to do a lot of your Abigail Disney, but you write checks basically to people, and she's not going to be writing any to him. Reed Hastings, who co-founded Netflix, he's saying we're not giving any further money to anyone now. So they're trying to. Also, it's slightly unhelpful, isn't it? Like, oh, I see. Is Hollywood going to choose them? I mean, that's a great attack line you've got right there. That I'm sorry, it's displeased the Hollywood elites, and now this is a Hollywood elite candidate who's coming in.
Well, the fascinating thing is, I genuinely think this is every single election over here and in America, show business does get involved, and we hear the opinions of celebrities, and we hear about the importance of their views on the records of different candidates and their views on the direction of the country that they live in. Nobody has ever given the first toss about anything anyone from the entertainment industry has ever said about any political issue.
I could not agree more.
Of all time. When you have an election, there's loads of little things that happen in this country, and you can send a tweet and people go, oh yeah, that was an interesting take on that. An election is such a deep and broad thing. It is millions upon millions upon millions of people, and it is way beyond the scale of the entertainment industry. The entertainment industry is huge. It is a big thing. It is not Coca-Cola, and it is not elections. And you can give the opinions. You can have all the opinions you want. You can spout off whatever you want to do on whatever forum you want to. You can talk on whatever chat show you want to. Nobody is listening to you, because in elections, people are thinking about their house, their neighbours, their school, their town, their infrastructure, their safety. That's all they are thinking about. And every single time somebody in show business gives an opinion on an election, it does the exact opposite thing of what it's supposed to do. And yet they still do it.
They can't help themselves. They want to use their platform for good.
But, people always say, why do you tweet more about this, that, or the other? I think, no. That's because if I want, no one is listening.
It's absolutely fine not to tweet. We've discussed it so many times on the podcast, but it's absolutely fine not to.
It's absolutely fine. Listen, George Clooney does many good things around the world, by the way, very quietly, and he does an awful lot of good in an awful lot of countries and for an awful lot of people. But I do not want to know.
I don't think. I wouldn't describe it as totally quiet.
But
do-gooding.
Nobody in the world has ever gone, before I vote, I just need to check on who George Clooney thinks I should vote for. Nobody. And you must know that, celebrities.
Yeah,
you
just give them your money and be on your way. I've said it before. Give them your money and be on your way. And no one wants anything other than your money.
Yeah, and lots of celebrities very quietly do amazing work and do work with charities and work with all sorts of things, and also absolutely taking none of that away. But the one thing we don't need is public pronouncements of opinions. You just don't need it.
I mean, as someone whose job is sort of public pronouncements of my opinions, I feel bad about it, but it's true. But
you're a celebrity now, are you?
No, I'm not a celebrity.
Oh,
I'm
that's
not saying
interesting.
I feel bad saying I can talk about these things, but other people can't.
No, but we know what we're talking about. You're a journalist and you look into things and you write about things, and that's a job that we understand in our culture. If you've just come off the set of a movie or you've just made your new album and you then decide you want to tell us about the election, you think, you're really good at making albums. Just go back in and do that. Write an album that is full of empathy and love and that gives people an emotion and a feeling. That's what you're good at. Make a film that makes people see the world in a different way. That's what you're good at. Don't then go, I also have the moral authority to tell you who I'm voting for and who you should vote for as well.
I do think that this thing of the idea of elitism and things like that has become such a sort of people have been so vocal about it in recent years, and it's been such a successful attack line that you're honestly just contributing and giving more ammunition to that these days.
Yeah. Every time an actor supports the Democrats, Trump rubs his hands in glee.
But I love, billionaires and rich millionaires, multi-millionaires in Hollywood withdrawing their finances, withdrawing their labor essentially for the Biden campaign.
Yeah, and so good luck now, Joe, without Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the truth is, if you do lose that group, it very quickly leads to you losing the media. It does have knock-on effects, but also they're essentially jumping on a train that's already left the station, which is this is not Hollywood has spotted something the rest of us haven't spotted. It's everyone spotted something and Hollywood went, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah. We can make a movie out of this. Mm. But it's listen, watch this space, but one suspects there'll be a new candidate in place, and one suspects that it won't be George Clooney who chooses them.
They will unfortunately have to recast some way into production. Shall we go to a break? This episode is brought to you by Sky. Sky is home to some of the very best shows, including, and we're very excited about this, the brand new season of House of the Dragon.
That's right. Season 2, House of the Dragon, is streaming right now on Sky. You're an enormous fan, aren't you?
I am an enormous fan. And if you're not already an enormous fan, you can catch up with the first season. But the new one has just dropped, and the hype is justified. The first episode is brilliant. Can't wait to see more of what's going to happen. Now everyone's at war, and more shocking twists and turns.
There's a lot of dragon action in this.
There's a huge amount of dragons. There's going to be 5 new dragons.
The clue's in the name, right?
Yeah, House of many dragons, but actual real name of the show, House of the Dragon.
Best dragon?
Best dragon. There's a massive one that hasn't been claimed yet called Vermithor. That's huge.
Vermithor.
That's a very powerful dragon. There's a little one called Moondancer.
House of the Dragon is available now exclusively on Sky.
Go to sky.com to find out more. Welcome back, everybody. What are we going to talk about now, Richard?
We're going to talk a little bit more about the Democrats. No, we're not. Don't panic. Don't worry. We're going to talk about that interesting thing of when a big new celebrity comes along and you think, do I need to know about this person? And you sort of leave it long enough, and you think, because most of them disappear, and you think, great, I did not need to find out about them. Some people are staying in the firmament. So we are just going to tell you about 4 people who are sticking around, who are the new superstars, choosing one from 4 different areas of entertainment, just so we've got you covered. Just so if a conversation comes up, you've heard of them, you know roughly who they are. Should we start with music?
Go ahead.
So,
who's your music pick?
Listen, you've heard of Taylor Swift. You learned about Olivia Rodrigo. The new massive superstar in music in the US and the UK is Sabrina Carpenter. Okay, if you need a moment to write that down, you can do. Sabrina Carpenter. She's had the #1 and #2 single in the UK for the last 3 weeks, Sabrina Carpenter. She's an actress and writer. She's been around a genuinely long time. She's another one of those people who came from the sort of Disney factory. So she's been in all sorts of movies, made all sorts of music, but she opened on Taylor's Eras tour. And it's the thing that's absolutely catapulted her now into absolute mega stardom all around the world. As I say, she's got the biggest songs in the UK at the moment, Espresso.
But that song also, something can come along that people are so aware nowadays of just all this stuff happening on bits of TikTok they don't necessarily go on or whatever it is. And then something has, the word breakthrough means so much more than it used to in the old days. You know, your breakthrough hit, if you have a breakthrough hit, then in a quite atomized and fragmented celebrity culture, you can suddenly be surfaced. So everyone's like, oh yeah, no, I heard that song, which also contains one of my favorite lines. It keeps making me laugh. I'm working late because I'm a singer. Yes. I really enjoy that line. There's something about it. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it just...
Yes, because in the olden days, there'd be a breakthrough act, you know, every week. You know, Dexys Midnight Runners would have Come On Eileen, and then Soft Cell would have Tainted Love, like sort of weeks after each other. And so these endless sort of succession of people becoming big. But now, yeah, if you make it big, you are literally, it's a global thing. It gets enormous very, very quickly. And Sabrina Carpenter's been around for a long time. And as you say, she would have been bubbling up on TikTok and all these different things that, of course, you're not watching. But they're
just not in your bits of TikTok. Yes. You might have seen some, but you're not. And then suddenly someone becomes sort of unavoidable.
And she has become unavoidable, Sabrina Carpenter. And certainly in 3 or 4 weeks' time, when someone says, have you heard of Sabrina Carpenter? You just go, have I heard of Sabrina Carpenter? Yeah, I have heard of Sabrina Carpenter. She started off in like the Disney thing in like sort of the 2010s, and then she opened for Taylor.
What was that show called Girl Meets World or something? Yeah. I've seen it.
They're all called that though, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all called a version of that, yeah.
She is also, by the way, very good. Espresso is a great song. Please, 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 which is number 2 this week as well, is also a great song. She is not going anywhere. Her new album is coming out in August and is going to be absolutely massive everywhere in the world. So I would say get used to Sabrina Carpenter. And do you know who she is dating?
Why don't you tell us?
Barry Keoghan, who is another of the great new global superstars.
Now, people do know him, particularly because he was in a film which is in a more sort of, he was in Saltburn.
Yes.
And that the dance of him at the end, this obviously was the big viral moment, but that got people actually to go and watch the film.
And that's the fascinating thing about when you turn from someone who's big and has done lots of work into someone who is a global superstar. Usually it's a thing. Usually it's one thing that does it. So Barry Keoghan has been acting brilliantly for many, many years. He's unbelievable in the Banshees of Inisherin. Yeah. So he's absolutely, everyone goes, oh yeah, I know that guy. And then suddenly Saltburn with the dance, there's a lightning rod, and everyone in the world at the same time goes, that's that guy.
It's the guy from The GIF.
Exactly, it's the guy from The GIF. And Sabrina Carpenter is the same in that it's not just she came up with a song and then she became famous. Yeah. She's been working for years and years and years. Suddenly she does the Taylor tour and she releases Espresso at the same time, and absolutely everything goes off and you've got a global megastar. And that sort of happened for both of them. That's a real power couple. That's the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce of 2025.
Well, surely Taylor and Travis will still be the Taylor and Travis of 2025. But
yes, I suppose so.
On the undercard.
Yes, I guess so. But listen, there's room for more than. I don't know.
There isn't that much room for more than one, which is quite interesting. That, in a way, which is part of what we're talking about. I have been
to Savile Row. There is room for more than one Taylor.
Okay,
I'll say that. Oh my God, can you believe it? Why do you do this podcast with me? That's a big question I have for you.
I love it when you lay one of those down.
Jesus Christ.
I adore it.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
I tell you what, I'm going to now talk to you about Glen Powell.
Yes, again, I mean, who?
Okay, Glen Powell is he's in some of the biggest movies. He's been in some of the biggest movies, and he is a movie star, I should say. But is he a movie star? Because lots of people don't know who he is. He was first in Top Gun Maverick, where he played the sort of Iceman analog. You know, everyone was almost identical, including Goose's son, who looked just like Goose. He was the sort of Iceman 2.0 in that movie. But he was quite honest about this. He has said in interviews that he could be talking to someone who was wearing a Top Gun Maverick t-shirt and they just wouldn't recognize him, which is sort of like, you've been in a movie that grosses $1.5 maybe more $1 billion. It's the biggest movie of that summer, and no one knows who you are.
Yeah,
this couldn't have happened in the old days.
Yes,
can I just say this just couldn't happen?
Everyone knew who Val Kilmer was.
Yeah, everyone knew who Val Kilmer was. You couldn't happen, but as I say, it's all much more fragmented, the celebrity culture. He then was in a Sydney Sweeney rom-com called Anyone But You. Now that in a genre that people think is on life support. It was actually R-rated, so it's it's a sort of 18. But people who thought that genre was on life support, it became a big thing. Sydney Sweeney is very, very hot because of Euphoria, and she is very hot as a physical being.
And she's White Lotus.
Yes. And for some reason, when they put her in Madame Web, of course, they made her unhot. That was the sort of joke. She was mad. Like, wow, Madame Web, you really did get every single thing wrong. Anyway, sorry, back to another drive-by on Madame Web. But that was very sort of TikTok driven, the support for Anyone But You, and lots of people went and watched it. He then, Glen Powell, was in Hitman, which was this Richard Linklater film that people thought, oh, this is actually quite good, and it had a bit of theatrical release and whatever.
It's a Netflix movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it has had some theatrical release because I think people thought, oh, actually, hang on, this is worth us putting it in theatres a bit. They obviously have some sort of form of awards desire, if whether or not that's realistic, I don't know. And then he's about to be in a big movie for Universal called Twisters, which is...
Is it about the ice cream?
Because
if it is, I'm interested.
It's the backstory. It's like Air, isn't it? No, it's actually the backstory.
How do they make them? Because you've got the raspberry bit in the middle, and then you've got lime and vanilla around the outside.
Yeah.
So it's about how they made the machine to make them.
Yeah, struggles in Act 3. It's about hurricanes, whatever. We know this. But Glen Powell is an example of like everyone... I saw him give an interview when he said... the real benefit of getting to this point in Hollywood is that I can now leave Hollywood. You know, he's one of those actors who's got a ranch or some place in Texas that he wants to go back to because Hollywood's a fake town. But it's like, you've got to the point in Hollywood, but also lots of people don't know who you are in Hollywood. But equally, you're maybe one of the young hot movie stars. It's very, very unclear where exactly you fit Glen Powell in. However, but he is aware of this himself because I think one of his sort of breakthrough, as we say, maybe I'm misusing breakthrough given how I defined it earlier on in this chat. One of his roles was in Expendables 3. Again, nobody knows Glen Powell was in Expendables 3, but with him were like Antonio Banderas, Harrison Ford and Schwarzenegger, and they all said to him, they told him all about fun stories about being immense movie stars in the sort of 80s and 90s and said, oh man, you're really doing this at the wrong time.
Oh no, poor
so
Glen.
Glen Powell knows that Glen Powell that movie stars are not the same as they were, and they're never going to be again. And so he understands that, and he exists in the time of knowing that, you know, Glen Powell is never going to be Harrison Ford.
But we speak about him because if you're in Hollywood today and you want to know who the big stars are who can open a movie, everyone is looking for a movie for Glen Powell or Sydney Sweeney. Those are the two names. Given we can't get Chalamet. Chalamet's already gone, right? He's already in the ether.
Chalamet's already doing
amongst
it with
the
Warner's,
stars.
so he's done a deal with them.
So Glen Powell and Sydney Sweeney are the names now that everyone is trying to get in.
Sydney Sweeney's really fascinating there, but I think there's something very interesting about her type of stardom. Sydney Sweeney is someone who it's okay for red state people to love. Now, we've talked a lot about Hollywood elites, and people always feel like, she will not nail her colours to any mast. People think she's hot. People think she makes jokes about herself. She grew up in what people think might be, they're not quite sure, but they think her family might have voted Republican. They're not at all sure. But she exists in quite a weird space where it's sort of okay to like Sydney Sweeney. Yeah. This is a bit, I don't want to make it sound like it's like Michael Jordan, you know, Republicans buy sneakers too, but she's a little bit Republicans find me hot too.
But
I'm interested in seeing what she does with that. But she seems great fun. I sort of really... But I kind of like her as an actress.
I like both of those people. I like Glen Powell. I like his presence. I like Sydney Sweeney. One interesting thing, just as a side note on Glen Powell, that thing of you see it in sport a lot now. There was the generation of your Sylvester Stallones and Tom Cruises and what have you. They made an awful lot of money, but then that drive to just keep making more and more money, have bigger and bigger franchises, and just keep that kind of star power going. Yeah. And the Glen Powells of this world, and again, as I say, you do see it in sport. People who just go, do you know what? I might just leave it. I've made if you were in any sort of big movies, 5 or 6 big movies, you've got enough money to set you up for life. You don't need to work ever again.
Harrison Ford doing in Expendables 3?
Yeah.
I mean, please, someone explain that to me.
Whereas
how much money's enough?
This generation are very, very smart at just going, I've got it. I just bought a ranch.
Yeah, I'm quitting.
Yeah, the reason I bought a ranch is it's really fun to spend some time on a ranch. I might just do that. I like the fact that this generation are quite good at saying.
I don't believe it for 1 minute.
Do you not think?
Glen Powell wants it more than anyone wants it.
Glen Powell's going to be in Expendables 40 when he's
he will be
when he's 70 years.
A lot.
And of course, from from the very, very last generation of non-AI actors.
Yeah.
So these are your last human beings who are going to be stars, which is which is an interesting one. Books. Now, I've spoken before about books. People say it's a hard industry to get into. And I've said, look, all of the biggest names of the last 10 years pretty much around the world have come from self-publishing. So Colleen Hoover, who's the biggest selling author in the world, absolutely came through self-publishing. Rebecca Yarros, Sarah J. Maas, all these people who are selling billions upon billions around the world, and not people who are sort of plucked from somewhere and sort of given huge star billing. They just wrote books that people really, really liked online, and then traditional publishing bought them in-house, and they sold even more. And that's happened again this year. There's a huge, huge new name, the biggest selling writer in the world this year. It's called Freida McFadden.
Oh, yeah.
Now, McFadden, it's been a long time since we had big McFadden news. Steve McFadden and Joe McFadden existed at the same time. We've now got Pat McFadden.
What about Brian McFadden? Don't leave out the Westlife.
There's a lot of McFaddens around. Yeah, Pat McFadden, who masterminded the Labour election victory. And now we've got Freida McFadden. Now, Freida McFadden is a...
They're all related, by the way. They're all part of the same Shapers family.
Yeah, the McFaddens. Now, she is a doctor in Boston, and she writes under a pen name, so Freida McFadden is not her real name. Started writing about 10, 12 years ago. She said, I just quite like to write a book about what my life is like as a neurology is her speciality. She said she wrote a book about The Devil Wears Scrubs, it was called. She just wanted to write something quite autobiographical about her world. She thought a few people would be interested. Sold like 2,000 copies of this all online. And she went, people seem to quite like it. So she did a few more medical thrillers, again, self-published. She's working as a doctor this entire time. And then wrote a book called The Housemaid. This is only a few years ago, a book called The Housemaid, about a woman who's sleeping in her car, gets a job with a rich family, and there's lots of secrets, and a psychological thriller, essentially. Now, The Housemaid is the biggest selling book in the world this year. There's 2 follow-ups. There's The Housemaid's Secret, The Housemaid is Watching. So Freida McFadden, now she's with, a traditional publisher, has bought every single one of her back titles and is now releasing them like every 3 months. A new Freida McFadden comes out.
Have they scrubbed them off the internet?
It's a very good question. I assume that they have, yeah. I assume as part of the deal, you must do. 3 of the top 5 books on the New York Times bestseller list this week are Freida McFadden books. She's got 3 in the UK top 10 as well. So that's a name that you may well have picked up one of her books recently. If you haven't, that's the name that's going to be the biggest author in the world for the next couple of years. And again, it's somebody who just sat down and said, I'm just going to try this and I'll show it to a few people, and if people like it and people read it, showed other people, those people showed other people. And the story of publishing in the last 10 years is that and that alone. And while publishers sort of keep chasing big names or, offering deals to people, the biggest star in the world in literature at the moment will be someone who's writing a blog and who's just writing chapters of something and sending them to a few people. And if you can do it and you're good at it, the whole of the book world is word of mouth. The whole thing is people like it and show it to other people who like it, who show it to other people and like it. It's like pop songs. And Freida McFadden is just the latest. We can't keep being taught this example and still throw money at people who are not selling books. Time after time after time, it's somebody sitting at home writing something that people love, and that's where all of the money is in publishing. If you'd found Colleen Hoover 10 years ago when she was still, selling things online, you'd be a billionaire now. And the same with whoever picked up on Freida McFadden. So that's the place where publishing should be looking. But Freida McFadden goes alongside Sabrina Carpenter, Glen Powell, and Sydney Sweeney as superstars you haven't heard of yet, but who are going to be the biggest names in the world.
Lots of people, we should say, by the way, have heard of these people, and we're being slightly tongue-in-cheek at this point. But also, can you still get a neurology appointment with her, or is she?
Yes, she's still she's working full time. The reason she's got a pen name, she said, because I don't want my patients to be freaked out. And you think,
God, really?
It might have gone beyond that, Freida. To be honest,
that's fantastic.
Yeah. You read interviews with her; she just sounds great.
I'm ashamed of what I've achieved. She's doing all that, and okay.
Yeah. She doesn't really like doing your big author interviews. She doesn't do live interviews, just the occasional Zoom thing, because she wants to stay. She wants to stay private, and she wants to write her books, and she wants to cure people. I think, oh my God, she sounds great.
Wow.
Yeah. So Freida McFadden. So listen, hopefully that's a little bluffer's guide. So if any of those names come up, at least hopefully we've given you something, a little morsel of who these people are.
Now, moving to people who I wish we no longer knew who some of these people were, could you tell me please place the producer's hat on your head?
Yes.
And tell me Which deposed Tory grandees / people who used to be conservative cabinet ministers will now have a media career in some form or other post their election defenestration?
Yeah, it's been that truism of anyone who gets kicked out, they're going to be on Strictly, and so I thought
I hate it when people say that.
I know, so I'm going to go through and tell you who definitely isn't going to be on Strictly. By the way, can we start with the fact that the ratings for the elections were quite seriously down on previous years?
They have been, and can I say that readership in newspapers of all the election coverage, certainly from people I've talked to across all titles, people did not want to read the election coverage. This was very much, I think, something. I know you had to believe that people, as the parties had you believe, people were deciding up to the very last minute. I don't think people were really deciding till the very last minute. And readership was really down on all that stuff. You have to still do it.
Yeah.
But you could see the numbers were not great.
Again, it may well be because it was a fait accompli and everyone knew the result. And actually, people were changing their mind. But the one thing they had made their mind up was, I'm not going to vote for the Conservatives. And so actually the last few days are quite a big movement. Am I going to vote Labour, Green, Lib Dem or Reform? And lots of people were moving, but nobody was saying...
The tactical was also huge, and we don't fully understand that yet. We will know more, but we don't understand it.
But so it may be that's the apathy, and that may be why the why ratings were down. But there were lots of... We won't do a review of all the election show. We'll leave that to Rory and Alistair. By the way, they mentioned their podcast so many times on that on the Channel 4 election thing. I absolutely took my hat off to both of them. I thought it was very impressive. They didn't mention They didn't mention their stablemates.
No.
Yeah, they didn't mention us.
I'm afraid I didn't watch that one because I have to watch all the counts. Although I didn't think anyone was great in getting the counts up.
Oh, there were a few counts on Channel 4. I tell you that.
Yeah, there were really.
So who's going to be Portello? Essentially, is what people want to know. Who's going to go on Strictly?
Wear a pink blazer and present a train show.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
okay.
that's a. Do you know what?
It's a genre.
That is one of the greatest things to be in British life, is the person who gets to wear a blazer and go on trains. I mean, who else do you want to be?
Do we have to film it? I'm happy to put them in a blazer on a train. I'll buy them the ticket. But who have I got to watch? Tell me who I've got to watch, because I can already see, by the way, that Rees-Mogg he's got a documentary crew following him for Discovery Plus.
Yeah. So we'll start with the bad news. Rees-Mogg is going to be a big name.
Why do we have? He's got a documentary following Discovery Plus, which is obviously like a very fourth tier channel. But I also feel like Rees-Mogg, come on, it's like, tell me again what happened to Batman's parents.
I don't think he's ever going to be able to go on Strictly or I'm a Slave or any of the big ones. I think he will find a way to be rehabilitated as a character on British television, because he has various different sides to him which have not come out. And so he's got a couple of years in play for him. But yeah, I think that is the reason why he is not going to be on Strictly. He is not going to be on I'm a Celebrity. Which Tories are going to be on Strictly? None of them. I would say it's not one of those fun things where it's, someone lost an election and a new party got in. There's such a visceral dislike for what the Conservative Party have done in the last few years and how they've run the country and the culture wars and all that kind of stuff. We could see what was happening. Everyone,
even in a show that, as we discussed on this, with that great More in Common research, does skew more Tory than any other show. Even then, they won't put one on.
It's an absolutely busted brand. The only person who might have any chance at all is Gove, because he got out early and because he slightly stood aside from it. So maybe he's got a chance, but I think Gove wants to do something slightly more intellectual. So I think he might be your man on a train in a blazer or whatever the version of that is. But I don't think there will be any Tories on Strictly. I doubt that very much. You might get Harriet Harman, say. You might get someone like that. Maybe Theresa May if she wanted to do it. Some of the ones that weren't quite in the toxicity of the last few years where they...
know she likes dancing.
Exactly. we know she's a mover. So I'm a Celebrity. Who will they go for? They'll go for all sorts.
I think they're quite nervy about political bookings, but
I think the Farage thing, it didn't make the show better, but it was something. Gove as well, they might try and book for I'm a Celebrity. The person they will get for I'm a Celebrity and who will do it, I think, is Johnny Mercer. They will 100% go for Johnny Mercer. Look at you. Ex-army. I don't think he likes to talk about it. But and he's done reality shows before. He did Celebrity Hunted with Kay Burley. So I think
that was fantastic.
Oh my God,
that was chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. He has the potential to be chaos.
Yeah, he really. I remember being in the control room of Hunted when that was on, and when Kay Burley and Johnny Mercer was sort of they took it quite seriously.
Well, and also, by the way, can I just say that these people want to get back?
Yes.
They want to be reselected for another seat when it becomes available. And part of the way of keeping them in the public eye is doing things like this. And I'm sure there's one particular that I'm sure you'll get along to.
Oh, who's that?
I was thinking you might talk about Penny Mordaunt. Now,
see, Mordaunt is very, very interesting. So Mordaunt, of course, she's done reality shows before. She did Splash.
Yeah. This is before she was famous as Penny Mordaunt. She was famous as on the ITV diving show Splash. Was it ITV?
It was, yeah. It was ITV. Now, she, as you say, definitively want to get back into Parliament. So it's something she's not going to do Strictly, I wouldn't have thought.
She'd love to. That would be a great way back in. I
don't think so, because I tell you
she
what,
won't get it. But
here's what happens with Strictly, because it's what happened to Ed Balls. So Ed Balls lost his seat again, a very similar election. Ed Balls would have wanted to get back in. He does Strictly, and he thinks, wait a minute, more people are listening to me, more people are interested in me. I'm getting paid more money just by being on television than I ever had in Parliament. Why on earth would I go back into Parliament? So I think Strictly actually makes you think, I'm never going to go back into Parliament. I don't think it's a route back in, I would say. Good
point. She might, and I think she really does want to get back into Parliament. And she, by the way, has spent such a long time visiting people, what used to be called the rubber chicken circuit, the other, that she's almost ready. Please select me in any of the many constituencies that I've visited over the past year.
So Mordaunt. Podcast, because it's hard to work. So we know the thing about political podcasts is you have to have people from different sides of the aisle. Okay, you have to have a Tory and a Labour, and that's very, very, very hard to do now because none of the Labour people have lost their jobs. You know, unless you like Thangan Debonair and Jonathan Ashworth, and that's it. And they're not moving the podcast dial, I don't think. So Penny Mordaunt has got to find again Mordaunt and Harman. Is that it? Is that a possibility?
Is that a thing? Is that anything?
Is this anything? So Penny Mordaunt, I think. The world of podcast. She'll listen. She's definitely going to write a book on the future of conservatism in the next 6 months. That's for sure. But I can't see her being on any of the big reality shows. So at the moment, to sum up, Strictly nobody. I genuinely can't see it. I just don't think it would work. I'm a Celebrity. I would say Johnny Mercer will be doing that. Now, the biggest celebrity show of next year is a new show. So forget Strictly.
Yeah.
And forget I'm a Celebrity. The biggest event celebrity show of next year is going to be Celebrity Traitors.
Yes.
Right. Now, this is where there really is some business to be done if you're an ex-Tory MP. Because one of the great things about Traitors, especially the celebrity one, is you need people who are archetypes. You need people who we automatically distrust. Conservative MPs, actors, you know the type. And so there will be spaces up for grabs there. And if I was Celeb Traitors, if I was running Celeb Traitors, and I'm not, Kwarteng is interesting for
really?
Celeb Traitors.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Yeah. I don't think he wouldn't do it. He won't have watched the show, and also, well, he would just think he would be brilliant at it.
But that's
you're leaving in week one.
But that's why they'll book him.
Yeah,
right.
But he won't do it.
People with lack of self-knowledge.
Yeah,
is who they really want to be.
Is any one of that? Have you got 250 of those somewhere?
Here's the booking for Celeb Traitors.
Right.
Absolutely nailed on, guaranteed. I think we'll probably do it because what else is he going to do? I think probably not quite as toxic as some of the others, and would be a perfect fit for it. Grant Shapps.
Oh my God, he would be very good. I tell you what, Gove would be brilliant. He's never met anyone he hasn't wanted to betray, so that would be good. But Shapsy would be hilarious on. But actually, having said that, this is going to be one of my recommendations. But let me just chuck it in right now because I want to talk about US Traitors,
yes,
which has John Bercow on it. Yeah. One of the things I'm enjoying about the show, the US Traitors, which you can now see on iPlayer.
It's really good.
It's really good, partly because the faithful have become slightly sentient, and they have worked out certain things they can do to sort of hoodwink. I won't spoil it, but the game playing is advancing, as we always said. Once people get to know the game more, they can think of strategies that we won't have seen on the show before. What I like about it is that John Bercow, our former Speaker of the House of Commons, is in it. And he's an absolute nobody in it. Like, he should have been in our politics.
Yeah.
He's finally met some people who were bigger bullies than him. notably the Housewives contingent. I also like the way they're talking about, which I hadn't realised, all the different Real Housewives, because everyone, by the way, on the US edition of this show is a celebrity.
They're all sort of reality stars,
and
people
stars.
who've been in shows that involve some tactics as sort of game show people. So it's quite an interesting.
Yes, it is.
bunch.
It is.
Yeah.
But the Real Housewives franchise, which has obviously got them in many, many different US cities, but what I kind of like is that people have already decided that they vote as a sort of sectarian bloc, which I find the way they're talking about them is like, don't betray my housewives, or you're just acting with your housewives. So yes, we're seeing the sectarian voting in Traitors and other formats.
But it is genuinely, as you say, because let us never ever speak the name again of Australian Traitors Series 2, the worst Traitors series ever, where it was the franchise killer. But you've got people who are used to being in shows and who understand the tactics behind it. So it's really properly interesting. It's not one of those ones where it's just a landslide every week for the person who goes, oh, it must be that person because they just accidentally said they were a traitor. You think, yeah, that's what a traitor would do. So it's genuinely, there's some interesting gameplay in it. Yeah, but Burko is in it, as you say, sort of slightly disappeared in it. There's been a couple of moments, and if it's been in the edit a couple of times, you know he's doing it non-stop when everyone is talking and Burko goes, order, order. So you can tell that he's thinking...
nobody in this country knows your catchphrase, by the way. Yeah. Nobody has heard of you. And if you're just having to play on your charm... Bye-bye. Yeah,
but he's thinking, I'm going to crack America with this. They're going to go, oh, you're the order guy from Traitors. But I would have thought Celeb Traitors would be a great home for one of the less toxic of the Tories. So
absolutely,
Shaps is. So I've got Mercer in I'm a Celebrity. I've got Shaps in Celebrity Traitors. I've got no one in Strictly. And then the big question is,
Gove is the ultimate celebrity traitor. Just book him.
Yeah, but would he do it?
To watch him get outclassed or outplayed by someone on Love Island would just be. But I love the gameplay, and I think they should try and book him.
Then you have, of course, GB News. Now, GB News, this is a really interesting one because, they've had Lee Anderson and Philip Davis and Esther McVeigh and what have you. Now, there are a lot of people now vying for those slots on GB News because there are a lot of talking heads who come from that side of politics who are now suddenly available. But GB News, it's going to be hard for GB News, I think, in opposition. I think... They have that fascinating, we're an underdog, we're against the elite, but everyone talking on their channel was an MP. And so it's a weird sort of
it was very establishment in lots of ways.
Whereas now it's going to be people who are not in charge, who don't know what's going on, who have no access to what's happening in the world. I think it's going to be hard for them to continue. Weirdly, a channel like GB News should work much better in opposition.
Yes.
But they have set themselves up as an opposition already, but when they were in power. And so it's quite hard to know what their next chess move is. There are lots of people...
They've got a short-term move, which is that they can be the place where the future of the party
is discussed.
And they can, give Suella a show, which is obviously going to happen. But apart from that...
Well, certainly if she'd lost, I think she would have been on it.
I think she would do it. I think she'd do one now anyway. Why wouldn't you?
Do you think? Well, why wouldn't she have done it before?
Because she was waiting to see. There's no need to do it before. Now she'll do it.
You think Suella for GB News?
I think she'll use it as a place to become some sort of dreadful Khaleesi. Yes. I'm afraid she'll be gathering her troops there,
like Khaleesi but dreadful.
Yeah, because she's a warm character,
like a dreadful version of Khaleesi. So those are my recommendations. I'd have Chaps on Celebrity Traitors, Johnny Mercer on I'm a Celeb, no one on Strictly. The breakout star of the election, someone who could be on any television show he wants to, and have any career he wants to from here on in, is Ed Davey. He is connected with the public in such an interesting way, and the way you really connect with the public is everybody individually by themselves thinks, oh, I like that person, or everyone thinks they've spotted like a personality trait in someone, and a large proportion of the British public all at the same time have gone, oh, I quite like that Ed Davey guy. And again, whatever has happened in politics, people tend to forget and don't care about. But if they have been exposed to somebody and like the cut of their jib, then that person can essentially write a check for the rest of their life. So Ed Balls can be on TV for the rest of his life now because there's something about him that people like. Portillo, again, whatever his political past is, there's something about him that people go, I'm happy to watch you on TV. And Ed Davey, I know he's now got a lot on his hands. He's got an awful lot of MPs. It's weird how little is mentioned by the fact that they've got a huge amount of MPs, where there's other parties with a tiny amount of MPs who get talked about a lot. But so he's got a huge swathe of MPs, so he's busy. But as and when Ed decides to hang up his political spurs, he has got a big future on TV. I think the British public, he would be the first name on Strictly's list if he ever gave up. And that's what you need, just someone that the public connects with. And I just think in this current generation of people who lost their jobs, I don't think people need to panic. I don't think they're going to be all over our television. No. I think there'll be a few here and there, but by and large, I think they are done. Cut to next year when we're talking about Sydney Sweeney as in a movie with Kwasi Kwarteng. Shall we do some recommendations? We've already recommended US Traitors.
Yes, both of us have recommended that, although neither of us have finished it, I don't think.
Yes, no, I haven't finished it.
I would really like to recommend the Barbie exhibition that opened on Friday, which is at the Design Museum in Kensington in London. It's really well done. I thought it was absolutely brilliantly done. If you had Barbies when you were younger, then you will love to see some of the dolls. But it's really brilliant. It's much more clever than that. It's done as a sort of design story. And there's so much sort of old footage of how the doll was advertised, all the many different heads and how they get the x-rays of the doll. There's so many interesting things, and just about the iconography and how she's fitted into the culture. It's really fascinating, and they have lots and lots of stuff and many dream houses. Me and my sisters asked for dream houses every year and never got them, but which my mother quite rightly worked out that us building our own houses took much longer to do, and
Clever.
Therefore each time, and therefore the game lasted longer and probably kept us out of her hair for longer. But it's at the Design Museum. I think it goes through till next February, but it's really worth going to see. It's very interesting as a design story and as a sort of product story, which I know makes it sound more boring than it is, but it isn't. It's fascinating. And
it's a perfect summer holiday thing for the kids as well. The other thing is, again, it's not a recommendation especially, but I think next week we both want to talk about Beverly Hills Cop 4, which we haven't watched yet. So I think we're both going to watch it. So if you want to watch it as well, and we'll have a chatter, because that's a big iconic
It's
thing.
on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
It did not get theatrical release
right now. Yeah, but I think there's an interesting story behind that,
yes,
which we can talk about. Talking of Netflix and theatrical releases, do you want the final bits of Thursday Murder Club casting news? I'm literally heading down there after this, as you know, heading down to Shepperton to the filming. The wonderful Sarah Niles from Ted Lasso and I May Destroy You is in it. She's Patrice. Richard E. Grant has just been cast in it as a baddie, and my lovely lady wife Ingrid is also in it as Joyce's daughter.
That's brilliant.
Not my idea, I have to say, but Chris Columbus's idea, not mine. So you
did everything to stand in her way.
I did everything that I said. Are you sure? Are you sure? So that's we pretty much got the whole cast. There's other people, but it's filming right now, and I'm going to go down now and take some shots as well, which I'll put on the old socials.
Do.
Yeah.
Sorry to see that there's no departing cabinet ministers who managed to find a berth, but
I know,
maybe on the sequel.
Yeah, maybe on the sequel they can. So I think that's us done, is it?
That is us done.
Yeah.
Will you please join us again on Thursday for the questions edition?
Questions and answers. Yeah.
The address is therestisentertainment@gmail.com, and we would love to hear from you.
We'll see you then.
Take care. Bye-bye.